If the St. Louis Cardinals are going to trade Sonny Gray, we've got 3 possible destinations for you, plus a massive announcement with Bally Sports and what it means for the Cardinals' future. This is Locked On Cardinals.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily St. Louis Cardinals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Cardinals fans. I'm JD Haffern, and I'm a national radio sports anchor, born and raised in the Lou, and a lifetime Cardinals fan. And I'm your host for Locked On Cardinals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. You can follow me on Twitter X at JD Sports Radio. The podcast also available on Twitter X at LO_Cardinals. I want to thank those of you who make Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find us on YouTube. Make sure you stop on by, like, subscribe, comment, and hit that notification button so you know when the new episodes are posted. This is a show serving Cardinal Nation and giving the best fans in baseball all of the info about the birds on the bat. This episode is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.com, Booking.yeah. The right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your baseball rivals. Book today on Booking.com, the official accommodation partner of Major League Baseball. Get the Booking.com app today. So hello once again, boys and girls. Welcome into another episode of Locked On Cardinals. We got a couple of things to chat about today. The big news that dropped earlier this afternoon, the Diamond Sports Group announcement that they could be dropping the Cardinals broadcast, as well as several other teams, and possibly only keeping the Atlanta Braves. That's a big deal. That's a big deal. That's something that we are going to dive into later on in this episode. We'll get to it, I promise. But I wanted to start off with something, I guess it's a little more fun, depending on how you look at it. Some people will find this a little more entertaining than talking about TV deals and money and stuff like that, because that stuff can be a little tedious from time to time. But this actually, what we're going to start with, has something to do with money, because the Cardinals are trying to lower payroll. That's been established, right? We know this. We don't know yet how far down they want to drop the payroll. We don't know how low that it's going to get, so it's hard to gauge which veterans with expensive contracts like Sonny Gray, Nolan Arenado, and Wilson Contreras, who still have years remaining and are still very good players. We don't know whether or not they're going to be moved or not. We don't know which ones are going to go be offered a trade option, which ones are going to stay. We don't know if they want to stay, if the Cardinals in this reset that they're doing is not something that they're in for. They don't want to be around for it. So still a lot of time to worry about these things. But I want to point out that it's they don't have to trade these guys, right? Like, they don't have to trade Nolan Arenado or Sonny Gray or Wilson Contreras. I personally think that removing Paul Goldschmidt's contract, as well as the contracts and the options of Lance Lynn and Kyle Gibson, Andrew Kittredge, Keenan Middleton, I think it opens up plenty of payroll to go around. And I know we're going to get some of these guys who will hit arbitration, and obviously their salaries are going to go up. People like Ryan Helsley and Lars Nootbaar. But I don't think it's to a point where, like, you're freaking out about what your payroll looks like, you know? But again, we don't know where they want to be. But even the Athletic's Katie Wu reiterated recently in an interview that, you know, this is not something that the Cardinals have to do. It's a decision that they're choosing to make. This is not a situation like the NFL salary cap where, you know, they got to get rid of people to get under the cap, or else they're going to face a bunch of penalties and whatnot. This is just a choice that they are making. They want to lower the payroll. And again, we just don't know how far down they want to go. Now, whether or not the math adds up for the budget and what they are saying, that's a different story altogether. Our buddy Jeff Jones over at bnd.com has some thoughts on how it doesn't quite add up in his mind. He's supposed to come onto the show here very soon, so I'm going to let him explain that stuff to you. He knows it much better than I do. But we can talk about the trades, right? USA Today's Bob Nightingale mentioned this weekend that the Cardinals will look into shopping Sonny Gray. And if they do, where do you guys think Sonny Gray will end up? That's the real question. Now, I made the joke on Twitter X yesterday where the Cardinals posted, if you went to the Cardinals website, cardinals.com, the first thing that pops up on the screen there is, hey, get your season tickets for 2025. And Sonny Gray is the guy on the photo. So when you click on that link, it takes you to where you can purchase your tickets. Curious how many people have already bought tickets, considering all the question marks surrounding things at the moment. But there it is. Sonny Gray is the guy on the forefront there. So I made the joke like, so we're not trading Sonny Gray? I mean, I would assume that the safe bet would have been to use somebody like Mason Wentz. If you're going to be trading away a guy like Sonny Gray when it comes to, hey, if you want to be excited about 2025 tickets, why would you have Gray on there? Why wouldn't you have somebody like Mason Wentz? But anyway, where would Gray end up? Where could he end up? There's been a lot of people who've written about this. Christopher Klein over at fansided.com did a write-up about this. So I thought we could take a look at what his thought process was on this and see what he thinks about the options that the Cardinals have and what are some good landing spots for Sonny Gray. Let's start with his the first spot here. And this is an easy one because this is the one that Nightingale mentioned in his little blurb about the Cardinals shopping Gray, and that is the Cincinnati Reds. Christopher says there is also plenty of reason to believe the Reds can actually compete next season. Gray would presumably join All-Star Hunter Green atop the rotation. That is a fascinating yin and yang for Cincy to build around. Green melting hitters with triple-digit heat while Gray dances around them with every manner of off-speed pitch. Experience in the bullpen never hurts, and it's hard to overstate the value of two top-shelf aces in your rotation. Their supposed interest in Gray is a positive sign. That means the Reds are seizing the moment and looking for big-ticket additions, even at steep costs financially. One could argue that Gray is the wrong ace to go after because of his age and the potential for a decline in production these next couple of years. But Cincy is not a free agent destination. Beggars can't be choosers and such. Now, my initial thoughts with this when I saw the Cincinnati Reds was it doesn't seem to line up and fit with what the Reds appear to be doing. And they like to get guys, if they're going to sign a guy, you know, how they did it with Frankie Montas this year, where they signed a guy hoping for the best, paid a decent chunk of change to bring him in. It didn't work out. They were able to move on from him, and that was that. Sonny Gray is not on a one-year deal or anything, you know. He's got a lot of money attached to him right now. I was told this offseason, like the fit as far as Sonny Gray going back to Cincinnati, that makes a lot of sense. Don't get me wrong there. It's the financial side of this that makes me scratch my head a little bit. You know, I was told this offseason that the Reds were very much interested in bringing Gray back. I've been told that he chose St. Louis over the Reds, that the Reds were right there with it. But are the Reds willing to take on $55 million in salary over the next 2 years on a veteran like Gray, who he had this great year in Minnesota, very good with the Cardinals, but you saw the home run spike this year. You saw he was a little bit more hittable than he was before, and then you're going to have him in Great American Ballpark, where pop-ups are home runs. Sonny Gray was very good at Busch Stadium, not so good on the road. So I don't know if I was the Reds, this is a smart idea. But financially, it's hard to fathom that they would take on $55 million in salary for him. And I don't think the Cardinals would want to eat any of that salary and then send him to a division rival as well. It just doesn't seem to make a lot of sense for me. But I guess stranger things have happened, but it doesn't add up to me. It doesn't add up to me for him to go to the Reds. Now, if there was some sort of 3-team trade, maybe it gets worked out. That would make a little more sense to me. So that's a possibility as well. I'll give you the next two places that Christopher picks next, plus a couple of other ones that he didn't bring up in his write-up here that, I feel like might be some spots as well. We'll get to it next on Locked On Cardinals. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. You know how sometimes you'll be watching a game and you just you get a hunch. You get a hunch on how things might go. I mentioned, watching games all the time, like watching that Baltimore game on Monday night or Sunday night. I was like, I was like, the first run, Derrick Henry goes off, and you're like, oh boy, it's going to be one of those days for Derrick. So the King ends up getting what was like 199 yards rushing, something like that. So when you get a hunch like that and you want to place a bet, if you go onto the FanDuel app, you can hop on there and check out, what the latest stats are. You can view the live play-by-play and so much more on the same page where you're actually placing your bets. So you're not thumbing around trying to figure out, where do I do this? And how do I get to this? It's all right there. They made it very convenient for you. So you might want to check that out. Thursday night football this week. You've got the 3-1 Bucks at the 2-2 Falcons. Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. They've been really, really good this year. My money is on the Bucks in this one. But it's up to you to decide what you want to do. With FanDuel, you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets. Guaranteed, by the way. That's guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in award winnings. PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks. Again, you can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. Now, PrizePicks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy, so your lineups stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. If your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, PrizePicks keeps your lineup live. It's the best place to get real money sports action. You can join over 10 million users and sign up today. Play alongside guys like Drewski and Joe Budden and MMA champ Sean O'Malley. You can now find community plays under the promos tab of the app to view the entries from some of the biggest names in the PrizePicks communities each and every week. So sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It is guaranteed. PrizePicks also offers weekly promotions. It's really the best way to win real money this football season. Which players are going to go off? Which ones are not? Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on PrizePicks. Download the app today. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 instantly after you play your $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. Thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. You can leave your comments on YouTube as well as on Twitter X anytime you want. That feedback always welcome and encouraged. Love getting the fan feedback there. Love having your voice on the show and being represented. We like to know what you're thinking. Let's continue with this article, which is on Fansided. 3 spots that Sonny Gray could end up that make a lot of sense. We had the Reds as the first one. Second spot that Christopher mentions is the New York Mets. He says, New York has the financial, hold on, let me get all the words properly up here. Let me get your picture, Sonny, up there while we're at it. New York has the financial wherewithal to trade for Gray. It's made even more sensible by the fact that most of the Mets' very dependable rotation, Sean Manaea, Jose Quintana, and Luis Severino, hits free agency in a couple of months. New York will have its sights set elsewhere, so retaining all 3 seems unlikely. In fact, New York may try to actively upgrade across the board. The window has never been more open for a Mets takeover in the NL East, with Atlanta floundering and Philadelphia getting older by the year. We have seen New York's pursuit of expensive veterans backfire in the past. Justin Verlander, Max Scherzer. But even those instances resulted in favorable trades. Luis Angel Acuna was the Scherzer return package, and he's about to start in the playoffs, assuming New York closes strong. Now, the risk is fairly limited relative to the upside of planting Gray next to Kodai Senga atop the rotation. The Mets should be going all out this winter, and Steve Cohen has never been afraid to add multiple expensive stars when the moment is right. Trading for Gray shouldn't prevent the Mets from targeting Soto or Burns. If anything, it might aid their pursuit of the offseason's creme de la creme. Now, my thoughts on this makes sense for the Mets and for the Cardinals. It really does. But it doesn't make sense for Sonny Gray, who I don't know if he enjoyed his first go around in the city of New York when he was with the other team. the New York Yankees. The idea of coming to the Cardinals, if you remember, was he and his wife, the family, they wanted to be close to home, which is Nashville. So they chose St. Louis. They thought it was a good spot. Sonny has this no trade clause, obviously. Not sure going back up to the Northeast and going to a big city like New York is what he wants to do again, even if they are a far better team. So I'm going to say nah on New York. I don't think, just the way Sonny is, it just doesn't seem like it would be a great personal decision for he and his family to go back to New York City. This next one, though, even though it's up in the Northeast, might work out a little bit better, and that's the Baltimore Orioles. Christopher says the Baltimore Orioles face an uphill battle to retain Cy Young candidate Corbin Burns this winter. The 29-year-old could command north of $300 million in total, which has never been in the O's budget. New ownership can change that, and a deep postseason run might tempt Burns to accept a discount, but Baltimore has a long way to go before we talk about their front office the same way we talk about the Mets front office. If the O's do miss out on a Burns encore, it's only logical to hit the trade market in search of a viable replacement. Gray, too, has extensive October experience, and he would bring a certain veteran calm to baseball's youngest World Series threat. If the O's can get healthier around Gray, their rotation shouldn't be much of an issue next season. Baltimore has more than enough trade ammo to acquire Gray and more than enough firepower to sustain a top-shelf contender. Now, this scenario makes sense to me because if you're the Cardinals and you're going to trade Sonny Gray, you're going to try to trade him somewhere where they have a lot of good prospects, right? Baltimore has been one of the top 5 farm systems in baseball for a couple of years now. And they've also got guys not just in the farm system, but maybe even on the active major league roster that maybe they can move, that they've got enough depth to facilitate a trade that way as well. You've already got some familiarity with the Baltimore Orioles following your trade with Jack Flaherty last year. So it's not like it's out of nowhere that you would have some rapport with the Baltimore Orioles front office. Again, though, does Sonny Gray want to go to the Northeast, or would he prefer to stay in the Midwest or maybe someplace more south? At this point in his career, I mean, it's not like he has to go somewhere north to find a place to play for a winner. You know, if winning a championship is as important as it is to him, but yet he still wants to be close to home, there are some other areas that I think make a lot of sense. You know, what about your teams in Texas? What about the Rangers? What about the Astros? What about the Atlanta Braves? I remember this offseason when we heard that the Braves were interested in Sonny Gray. I was like, oh man, how are we gonna beat that? Because the Braves, they just have such a great system down there. You know, everything they do, and I'm not talking about farm system, I'm just talking about they just win, right? They're kind of like what the Cardinals used to be. Like they just figure it out. You know, how many injuries have they gone through this year? And yet they still made it. They still hung on and made it into the playoffs. People tend to thrive there. Look what Chris Sale did this year for the Atlanta Braves. Could be the NL Cy Young Award winner. So if I'm Sonny Gray, why wouldn't I want to go to the Atlanta Braves? Now, the problem for the Cardinals in a situation like this with the Rangers, the Astros, and the Braves is they don't have the greatest farm systems right now. They're ranked very, very low. They're like one of the bottom 5. All 3 of them are in like the bottom 5 rankings of MLB Pipeline. So they might not have the return the Cardinals would want, but they're also places that can handle the salary of Sonny Gray, and they probably wouldn't even think twice about it. So again, the Cardinals don't have to trade Sonny Gray. I personally would love to see Sonny stick around, but the way things are going financial-wise, moving on from 2 years and $55 million makes a whole lot of sense for the Cardinals. And I keep seeing online where people are like, well, they're rebuilding anyway, so, you know, what's the point of having him on this team? I mean, this was still an 83-win team this past year. The guys that you're saying goodbye to, are they really the main pieces of what this team needs to be moving forward to be good? Not really. Like Lance Lynn, Paul Goldschmidt, the way Paul Goldschmidt was this year. I mean, are you losing that much where you're not going to be competitive at all? I find that hard to believe. I really find that hard to believe. But, people have different opinions on what some of these guys can offer. So, again, don't have to trade them. But if they get an offer they can't refuse, Godfather style, you got to entertain it. And the same goes for Nolan Arenado and Wilson Contreras. What has John Mozeliak said over the years? Like, nobody is ever untradeable. Like, where like you would just say no matter what. There's always a deal where you get to a spot and you're like, okay, that's too good to pass up. I can't say no to that. So leave your comments on this down below and on Twitter X, where we're going to get into the Bally Sports stuff. Big announcement was made today. We'll get into that next here on Locked On Cardinals. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.com, Booking.yeah. Explore those U.S. cities you've always secretly wanted to learn more about, whether it's some of my favorite places like New York or Boston or Vegas and Miami, San Diego. Gosh, I love going to San Diego. Such a cool place. L.A., Nashville, Sonny's hometown, Kansas City. Go get you some barbecue. You can visit the family there. Those are some of my favorites. And if you haven't been to any of them, Booking.com can get you there with hotels, bed and breakfasts, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more. It's all available on Booking.com. You might just find your perfect stay, even in your baseball rival's city during the postseason. Now, why would you want to go to a place like Chicago or Pittsburgh or Cincinnati at this point? I don't know, because they're not in the playoffs either. Milwaukee's still in there, though. But I'm guessing if you're going to go to Milwaukee, you're going up there for a Packers game, right? But either way, you want to get to some of these great cities and go visit some of these stadiums, or whether you want to go visit for NFL games or basketball coming up, Booking.com delivers exactly the right U.S. stay for you. They can help you book a stay that's close to your home team's or rival stadium. And no matter what your team, whichever one you're rooting for, Booking.com can make you a fan of any U.S. city. From hotels that overlook stadiums to family-friendly resorts to cute bed and breakfast stays, Booking.com has so many choices across the U.S. The right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your baseball rivals. Booking.com, Booking.yeah. Thank you again for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen today. Now go check out the Locked On MLB podcast. The Fall Classic is being covered by Sully each and every day. You can find the link to Locked On MLB in the description. That way you don't have to go searching for anything. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I know all the nuances about the TV contracts, who gets what and how much they get. I'm an on the field baseball guy. I'm not the financial wizard, the behind the scenes business person in a suit and tie that knows all of that stuff that's going on. Basic math stuff I can get, but when it comes to TV contracts and stuff like that, kind of over my head. It's not a whole lot that I know about that stuff, but there are people that do. They cover the Cardinals, and one of those guys is Derek Gould at STLtoday.com. He put up a story today about this whole situation. I'm going to link that story here in the description so you can go read all of it, because I'm not going to put I'm not going to read this whole thing to you because there's a lot involved with it, but I can break it down, kind of paraphrase some of the stuff for you of what's going on in the announcement that was made today. So Diamond Sports Group, the parent company of Cardinals broadcast partner Bally Sports Midwest, signaled today that it could drop the broadcast of the Cardinals and several other teams for 2025 if they are unable to renegotiate their rights fees. Now, earlier on today, there was, something was posted where it's over, they're cutting ties and it's done. Apparently that's not the case. They're going to try to renegotiate their rights fees, but if that breaks down and it doesn't work, then, other things will have to happen here. Now, Gould writes, while that would leave the Cardinals without one of its largest sources of expected revenue, it also could clear the way for them to seek a direct-to-consumer streaming model. So it's not all bad news if this happens. Diamond Sports, which initially signaled it was dropping broadcasts of some teams in court statements, has also approached clubs like the Cardinals about negotiating their existing agreements. The Cardinals have a 15-year contract with Bally Sports Midwest and is a business partner limiting Diamond Sports' ability to withdraw. Diamond has bowed out of similar agreements during bankruptcy. In a press conference earlier this week, Cardinals president Bill DeWitt III said that a future goal of the club is to establish a direct-to-consumer broadcast, and in doing so, erase current blackout policies, navigate out of a collapsing model, and reach more fans. Now, I realize on YouTube I have Bill DeWitt Jr.'s picture up there. I don't have a picture of Bill DeWitt III, so get over it. DeWitt described developing an app that would be available via subscriptions, as a few teams have been able to do when their broadcast partner bounced. The Cardinals are one of 7 teams in the 11 mentioned in court who are under contract for 2025. This past season, Bally Sports Midwest paid around $73 million to the Cardinals based on Post-Dispatch reporting and research. The number was set to grow to $76 million or more for 2024. The Cardinals are not yet into the most lucrative years of that deal. So, this is basically stuff that has been said in court files right now. That's what we're hearing. So the renegotiation window is, I guess, open. This is what I'm taking from this, is that it's open. If they can work something out, great. If not, it's not exactly the end of the world, but now you're starting to understand why a lot of teams, not just the Cardinals, are bringing their payrolls down, because they don't know what money is coming in yet. They don't have that information yet. So I'm guessing they kind of knew that this was coming. Although I did read that MLB was caught off guard by this. So maybe they didn't. Maybe they didn't know. But it's definitely something to monitor as we move forward, because it's going to decide on what kind of money the Cardinals still have available going into the 2025 season. But you're starting to understand, I guess, why financial reasons the Cardinals are going to move their payroll down some. And it's not just because they're overpaying for guys who aren't good enough. It's because, look, we don't know. We have a lot of question marks here. So, and if I'm wrong about this, let me know in the comments section. Again, this is stuff that is well over my head, but that's just kind of what I take away from this. Again, you should check out Derek Gould's article for yourself for even more insight to all of this, because that was just a small portion of what the whole story tells you. So links in the description. Go read it for yourself. See what you think. But obviously, this is something that's been hanging over the Cardinals' heads for a while now. And hopefully it gets cleared up sooner rather than later. That way we can all move on with our lives and talk about more fun things like trades and free agent signings and stuff like that. So that's the latest that I got for you guys. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. If you haven't already, give us a follow on Twitter, X at @LO_Cardinals, and at JD Sports Radio. Like, subscribe on YouTube to help our channel and love for the Cardinals grow. You guys are the best fans in baseball for a reason. And I will see you next time on Locked On Cardinals.